Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 17th iteration of the Marlboro Central School District Board of Education meeting. I'd like everybody to stand with me to salute for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, it's 7:32. Okay, next we'll start off with the superintendent's report from Mr. Rydell.
Thank you very much. I have a few brief announcements, and then I'll also run through a few slides. As I indicated at the last meeting, we have a 3 or 4 stage process of just running through some of the focus areas that the administrators and teachers that are working on our continuous improvement committee, some of those focus areas, and then how that might impact our federal funding that we do still have access to. So I'll run through that in just a moment once Mike is able to bring that up. I'll try to avoid stealing everything from Celeste's report. So I think there'll be some overlap, so I'll just take a different take on it. I just wanted to just note for the board and then just thank our students. We did have our first student voice committee at the high school this week, and it was absolutely incredible. Celeste was part of that. She did an outstanding job, but really the amount I learned from our students in, how long, Celeste? Maybe an hour and a half we were together? About that? About an hour and a half. And I'm just very appreciative, and we'll do that each month and really just get things where our students are pleased with some of the results. Like I said about the Continuous Improvement Committee, I'll run through this, just a very brief set of slides here. Right now, each one of our buildings, their team is coming up with action plans for the focus areas. So this evening, I just wanted to run through what those focus areas are. For the elementary school, our team is working on the literacy program and what we're doing in each of our classrooms to support that initiative. So we have a pilot going on at this time where we're piloting 2 literacy series. We're also taking a look at other research-based programs that exist that are being utilized in other school districts, and we're coming up with metrics that we're going to use to measure those to ultimately make a decision, because literacy is something that is obviously a very fundamental skill set and requirement, but it's also something that's going to translate to success beyond the elementary school level. So we're really being very mindful in that, and I'm pretty excited about the way that action plan is really developing. We also are looking at other initiatives that kind of fit within the tentacles of literacy, and that includes the concept of one school, one book, and we'll get more into those concepts at a later date, but it is basically exactly as it sounds, having one book that every student in that building and their families will receive and be reading and have activities associated with that. I've experienced that in the past, and it's just with great success. Also looking at our classroom and our library resources, are there ways that we can better organize that, and also purchase materials that will again engage the students in literacy and reading activities. And the action plan also consists of professional learning for our teachers and our administrators, and time, which is certainly key to any successful initiative, time for data analysis. And as many of you have heard, Ms. Amadeo and Ms. Thomas, a place of love and learning. That's Marlboro Elementary School's key phrase, and they certainly embody it, but that really also involves the character education program there. And again, that part of the action plan is shaping up very, very nicely, and we're looking forward to present that. On to the middle school. Focus areas, a lot of overlap here because these are priorities that, really they're universal, and that is having our students become the best that they can be in all aspects. And sometimes that really has to start with a focus on character education, and being mindful of what are positive behavior attributes, etc., mindfulness activities. And the Marlboro Middle School also is looking at how can we also infuse and incorporate more literacy activities, research-based activities into our program, also looking at not just interventions but enrichment activities, and once again the concept of one school, one book, and again that key concept of data analysis. Onto the high school, certainly things, while they remain the same, there are some different areas of which a high school is certainly going to key in on and focus. One of the things, and this really resonated in our student voice committee, and that was the concept of the courses, the electives, the opportunities that our students have during the school day to help prepare them for what comes after high school. And it's certainly something we're all cognizant of and focused on. And I know that's a priority of the Board of Education as well, because you'll also notice that these all correspond to board goals. And so looking at our electives, looking at our college course offerings, looking at courses that will help prepare students for the trades, also our essential skills that we're looking for every student to develop while in high school. We have a foundations course. A lot of time was spent discussing what should be part of that curriculum, what are basic, when I say basic, I don't necessarily mean simple, but what are very fundamental skills that one should have by the time they leave our school. And so that would make it so that it would really assure all of our students to have that, what we feel is essential skills. Authentic learning experiences, if we could just jump back, Mike, I apologize, I'm going a little more verbose than probably Mike would like. Authentic learning experience, so that's like beyond what one would find in a textbook, or when I think back to my learning experiences, not so much of the authentic learning experiences, right? Real life activities, real life applications, how can we expand upon that? This is an area of which I'm very passionate about. I'm super excited. Our assistant principal that we just hired at the high school, she's actually certified in work-based learning, so opportunities are just, the stars are aligning and opportunities are abound. But how can we partner with community organizations, of which our district is quite rich with, industry that is out there and accessible to our students, to help allow them to learn about the different trades, areas of business, etc. Sometimes it's just as important to find out what you don't want to do as it is to find out what you do want to do and what you're passionate about. And also seals and endorsements, so that really refers to what comes at the end of high school. There are two examples of seals that New York State has, the seal of civic readiness and the seal of biliteracy. Those are two opportunities that many of our students actually satisfy. We need to make sure we're capturing all that and providing our students with those seals for their diploma, because it just makes them that much more competitive in anything they're looking to pursue beyond high school. There are also endorsements that we could develop locally, and that's something we're going to use our teams to come up with, a STEM endorsement for students that have taken a certain number of credits in science, technology, engineering, and math, etc. And also one of the things we're launching this school year, we'll be using the federal funds for, is the Passport for Good license. And that's, Mike, if you can go on to the next slide, I have a few screenshots that I took from that. So really the concept of Passport for Good is it allows students to capture different activities that they've taken place, that they've partaken in while in their high school experience, and it can go beyond that to middle school, etc. Extracurricular activities, all the community service opportunities. It also allows us as a school to push out what community service or community-based opportunities are out there for our students, and they can then sign up through this. It tracks it all, and it really just does a few things. It allows the students to track all their community service hours, so at the end of their high school career and they're doing their application, they don't have to try to remember it all or factor it. It's all right there. It also allows us as a school to offer incentives. The more involved you are, maybe there are opportunities for prizes and things along that nature. Again, all corresponding with the character education concept and really the skills that one develops in being involved with the community, cannot be translated in another format in the high school experience. Going on to the next slide, Mike. Simple as this, it would be on the student's phone. These are all from their website, so these are, you won't recognize the hand there that's holding that phone. And this would be what the student would see on a tablet type of device, just really tracking that. So we're very excited about this. It is a very reasonably cost item that we think will really make a difference for our students in high school, and then ultimately when we transition to also incorporate the middle school. So those are the slides I wanted to run through as far as our action plans go. And if there are any questions, I'll certainly field those from the board. Yeah, James?
How would an organization sign up to put up volunteer opportunities?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and really that comes down to the marketing that we will have to do to let organizations know that we want our students to have these opportunities that are out there. And I'm first and foremost, I volunteer students that don't even know me, right? I'm like, hey, you want our students to come? Well, we can send students. But that's a great point. That's on us to get that word out to the organizations, but we do have organizations that do contact us. They do contact the National Honor Society advisors or do contact the counseling office about these opportunities. This makes it that much more of a vibrant opportunity, and it also allows our teachers would be able to put opportunities on there. So if they're a member of a club outside of, or an organization outside of the school district that could use some student assistance, or even if they don't necessarily need it, but they'd be willing to allow our students to be a part of it, that can all be put on there. Celeste could see it come up on her feed and say, hey, I'm free this Saturday. I would love to be a part of that initiative. So great question. Thanks for asking that. And if there are no other questions, just wanted to just acknowledge a few of our teachers. I'm sure Celeste will talk about youth and government that took place in our school district today. We're very proud of what happened, and we had 12 other schools visiting our campuses today to take part in the youth and government event. But just wanted to recognize Mr. Ventriglia and Mr. Barbeline for the work that they did to make this happen and coordinate it, just outstanding. And also, we were informed that one of our teachers was the K-104 Teacher of the Month. So Ms. Bagacek, congratulations to her and her colleagues at Marlboro Elementary School. And with that, thank you.
Great information, Mike. Thank you. I just wanted to point out that the second meeting of the month, as a board member, is one of my favorites because we get to meet some truly exceptional students in our Student of the Month program. Today you're going to be fortunate to meet 5 such students that have exhibited exemplary not only conduct but learning and performance in our schools. But before we bring them up, I just wanted to throw out that, when you see something great or you hear about something great, don't be afraid to tell others. We have a great little community here, and amongst each other, we do a great job, patting each other on the back. But the rest of the world tends not to know about some of the great things that go on in Marlboro. In the last 2.5 years as a board member, I've been fairly active in some of the websites that rate schools. One such website is called greatschools.com. And I was a little upset to learn that there hasn't been a comment on that about the Marlboro School District in the last 1.5 years, which was mine. So that kind of tells you that as good as things are around here, as you see great changes going on, you see tremendous scores that our students are putting up. Don't be afraid to tell somebody. Log on and go on to Great Schools and say, hey, you know what? Marlboro's doing okay. Things are pretty good in Marlboro. It's really a great thing. But let's get to the main event, our Students of the Month. So since we have 3 from the high school, I'd like to call Principal Ryan Lawler to the stand.
Good evening, and I'm going to invite up Mr. Jason Young from our Physical Education Department. So we're introducing 3 Students of the Month tonight. It actually ties in perfectly with Mr. Rydell's discussion of Passport for Good and volunteerism. Madison Callahan, Ava Davidson, and Carly Stareski are with us. They're seniors. Congratulations, and come on up. They've done a lot of work in our community, and that's why they're being recognized tonight. Mr. Young?
Good evening. So these three lovely young women, when the elementary school started their swimming program, I needed some volunteers. I asked these three girls, they gave up not only their phys ed time, but when most other seniors with early dismissal would go home, work, hang out with friends, do what we all did at that age, they stayed in the school, got in the pool and swam with, I don't know, third, fourth, and fifth graders, and helped out the teachers, helped the kids helped the girls change, and just get used to being in the pool. So I wanted to recognize all three of them for not only being great students, but volunteering and giving up all their free time to help out kids that they didn't even know.
So they're going to bring certificates, and then we'll take a picture in the front.
Seems Superintendent Rydell isn't the only one volunteering our students.
Where do we go?
Yeah, we'll slip that through.
Put it on that.
We'll go right up for a picture.
Okay.
Yeah, so where is that? Thank you.
Congratulations again, great job. Sure, why not? Go ahead. You can... Next, we have middle school assistant principal Damian Stanmeyer and special education teacher extraordinaire, our first year, Joseph Redendo.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Connors. Mr. Rydell, Board of Ed, thanks for having us tonight. It's always exciting to be here and recognize positive students and wonderful attributes. So tonight's student is Malcolm Reeves. He's a 7th grader, and it's been wonderful to see his progress over the last year or so, and it was a great choice. So I will, at this point, have Mr. Rendendo speak a little more about Malcolm. Come on up, bud.
Good evening, Superintendent Rydell, members of the Board of Education, administrators, family, and friends. There is no better feeling as a teacher than seeing your students improve academically, socially, and emotionally. Malcolm is an intelligent, hardworking young man who has done all 3 of these things this year. Witnessing it firsthand is something the Special Education Department at Marlboro Middle School is honored and proud to see. Malcolm is a 7th grade student and a member of the modified football team. He is an exemplary student, kind to everyone, asks for help when he needs it, and is the type of person everyone wants to be around. Malcolm is an extraordinary young man. When I mentioned the news to my coworkers, they were thrilled for Malcolm receiving such an honor. Mr. Egan states that Malcolm is a very polite and respectful young man. Mr. Nicosia said that Malcolm is hardworking and responsible. When he is absent, he independently follows up with the teacher to see what he missed and completes his work. Ms. Retro states that Malcolm has quickly increased his work ethic in class since starting school in September. He shows a greater ability to focus in class and follow through on work completion. Overall, he shows a desire to succeed and do his best in school. Mr. Cloninger states that Malcolm has displayed increasing amounts of dedication to his work and has demonstrated a commitment to try his best in the classroom each day. Malcolm, please know that you are a special, bright young man. The work ethic you have will not only serve you in school, but serve you when you go to obtain a job one day. The sky's the limit and you are capable of anything you put your mind to. Thank you for being the person who puts a smile on people's face, leads by example, and for working as hard as you do. Kids like you are the reason why I became a teacher, and seeing you succeed every day means more to me than you know. On behalf of the Marlboro Middle School Special Education Department, I am so very proud and delighted to present Malcolm Reeves as Student of the Month for Marlboro Middle School.
Hey, Malcolm. Congratulations.
All right, Malcolm, thank you.
Great job, Malcolm. And last but not least, our dynamic team from the elementary school, Miss Principal Janet Thomas and Assistant Principal Sarah Amadeo.
Good evening. I just wanted to start by saying my sincere thanks to Ava, Carly, and Madison because I had the pleasure of knowing them at the high school. And on behalf of MES, it's a very well-deserved award. Thank you for taking such good care of our little ones. Going to the pool can be exciting but scary for some. So thank you so much for just, again, being a positive role model. Without further ado, I'd like to, at this time, recognize our third grade student of the month, Alexandria Murtha, and bring up her teacher, Ms. Taddeo. And before Ms. Taddeo gives such a nice introduction about Alexandria, I have to say that she really does light up every room with her smile, and she gives the warmest and biggest hugs. So I'm so lucky to have you as a student, Alexandria.
Thank you, Mrs. Thomas. Good evening, Board of Education members, Superintendent Rydell, community members, friends, and family. It is my privilege and honor tonight to present to you November Student of the Month from Marlboro Elementary School's third grade, Alexandria Murtha. Alexandria came into third grade ready to meet expectations and to take on any challenges thrown her way. Although she has only been in third grade for 3 months, she exhibits qualities of a mature third grader by constantly helping others when needed, complimenting her classmates, and being empathetic towards others. While working independently, I noticed Alex take on the role of being a helper and guide to a student next to her who was challenged by the task at hand. Without any intervention from me, she became the student's partner in helping with all he needed to achieve, while continuing to push herself to make her work exceptional. This was the moment I knew that she had truly earned the title of Student of the Month. In addition to her great sense of empathy and generosity, Alex is an incredibly hard worker. She works to her full potential despite any obstacles. She seeks her work to be immaculate and precise while allowing herself to be creative and inventive. When giving an option to have an academic choice time, you can find Alex with her nose in a book, which of course makes my teacher heart very happy. Not only does she go above and beyond in the classroom, but she also has taken on the responsibility and challenges of joining the swim team. She comes in with a smile to share about her accomplishments and her hard work. We are beyond proud of her for many reasons. Alex's special area teachers and past teachers were so excited to hear that she was Student of the Month and could not agree with me more that I have chosen her. They wanted to share some comments as well. Mrs. Barletta said she is a genuine soul. Alex seeks learning challenges, works for her full potential no matter what, and is a leader and a model citizen. Mrs. Williams said that Alexandria is a wonderful student. She is kind and polite to her classmates. She always works hard on her projects and is very creative. Mrs. Palumbo said, when I think of Alex, these are some of the things that come to my mind. She's always happy and loves to help out in any way she can. She always does her best and works hard throughout class. And last but not least, she is an amazing swimmer. When I saw her glide through the water last year at the high school pool during our swim unit, I was in awe of how effortless she made it seem. I'm so happy that she is receiving the Student of the Month award. It is clear that our whole MES family, as well as myself, is incredibly proud of Alex for this exceptional achievement tonight. Alexandria, you are an exemplary student, and I can't wait to see all you achieve in the future. Congratulations on your well-deserved honor of being Marlboro Elementary School Student of the Month.
Congratulations.
Great job, and congratulations to all of our students of the month. Okay, so next up, we'll have our student rep report. Celeste Charlemagne, you're on.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending tonight. I will be discussing some of the main activities that are happening throughout the district. The High School Drama Club performed 2 plays, Selfie and Bad Auditions by Bad Actors, Thursday, November 3rd through Saturday, November 5th. The performances were amazing. Selfie will be performed one final time next Tuesday, November 22nd, for all high school students. The Student Voice Committee met on Wednesday, November 16th. A select group of students met with Superintendent Rydell and Principal Lawler to discuss concerns and voice their opinions on the change they want made within the building. Winter sports begin this past Monday, November 14th. Earlier tonight, the Students Empower Equality Club hosted a diversity night. The food was delicious and the performances were fantastic. I was one of the students that participated in the Youth and Government Convention that happened today at the middle school, and although it ended in a fire drill, it was a great experience. Thank you, Mr. Ventriglia and Mr. Barbulian, for making that happen. The middle school hosted their annual Power Up Night on Monday, November 7th, and had an amazing turnout of students and families. We are appreciative of all of our community members, faculty, and staff who made the evening a great success. 80 sixth graders and 17 chaperones had a fantastic time on the Frost Valley trip this past Wednesday and Thursday. This week, numerous faculty and students participated in our mural that was designed by Marlboro resident and artist Joe Pimentel. We are super excited to add this warm and welcoming mural to our entry area. Our upcoming half day will be an activity day with the exciting turkey trials competition hosted by the Student Council and the return of our faculty band, Paper Jam. We can't wait to hear them play. On November 21st and 22nd are the parent-teacher conferences. The elementary school is participating in a Thanksgiving drive this week to contribute baskets to local families and community members. We had our book fair this past week sponsored by the MES PTA. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to providing updates on important school district events and topics. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Charlemagne. It's very difficult to hold a crowd once Student of the Month is over, so don't take it personally. Okay, so next, we have our food service presentation. There's a extensive report prepared by our food service director, Mr. Fred Callow.
So before I turn it over to Mr. Callow to go through the status report of our food service from September and October, I just wanted to thank Ms. Jennison for coming out to support her department. It's much appreciated. And Liz Morgan, who's here, who is really Fred's right-hand lady. She really helped us a lot keeping track of our students, and she really did a great job pushing for our free and reduced lunch forms to get filled out. So thank you, Liz, for all your support. And at home watching us, Deb Pagano and Sue Smith, the heart of our business office, are watching, and they too had a great hand in making sure the dollars and cents all lined up for us. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Fred Callow to talk about the status of our food service from September and October.
I was going to do the same thing, I think. It's very much past our bedtime almost, isn't it, Liz and Cindy? Yeah, me too. So, good evening, everybody. How are you today? Great to see everyone. So I just want to run down each slide that you see up here, basically, and I'll look back at my papers, but I think I can project out to you guys and so you can actually hear, or the public needs to hear me at home, too. So I'll just stand right here instead. Thank you. The first slide that you're looking at is our free or reduced percentages for this school year, and I'll just read off my paper. Each school is broken down for you how many students are actually free or reduced at each building up there. You see 303, 168, and 181 for the high school. Our district-wide is 652 students, which is almost 35% of the district right now. We've processed 118 applications for free reduced lunches this year. As a note, last year we only processed 17 because everybody was getting free for the entire year. So a lot more work for our office this year, obviously. Direct certified is 579, and that's downloads that we do off the website, and that makes up 31% of the district. That's people not having to do anything. That's Medicaid, SNAP, that kind of things that we download from the website. We're required to do it once a month, but we actually do it almost weekly. We go on the website and look for names and stuff. So, next page. And just want to give you a little comparison here from last year, and this is just a snapshot of October to bring to your attention. Last year in food, we used almost $50,000 in food total for our costs. This year, it was over 60, as you can see, almost an 18% increase in cost year to year just for that 1 month. This is bid pricing that we go off of, and a lot to do with inflation, unfortunately. Anybody that goes and shops in the store knows what the prices have gone up, so that's really affecting our department right now. Paid status reimbursable meals for September. These are the students that are receiving meals that are paid status that normally would be paying us at the register for each meal as they're coming through or being deducted from their school lunch fund, that when we decide to give free meals to all. So the revenue for breakfast and the revenue for lunch is listed up top that we're saying is a loss because we did not collect that from our students. So that's $29,000 in change for lunches and over $6,600 for breakfast revenue that we did not collect from those paid students. We do, however, get some aid for that for breakfast, about 50 cents every breakfast and about 85 cents for every lunch that we collect. So we do get some aid on that. So we have that for September's list up there, and if you go to the next screen, it is October, and it's the same thing for you. Just over $8,700 for breakfast revenue that we did not collect, and revenue at lunchtime was $32,500 and change for $32,581 to be exact for lunches that we did not collect. And if you actually add those together, and that's not a screen up here right now, that would be over $77,000 that we did not collect from those students for our lunches. But some good news coming up. Fund balance. We had $473,780 to start the school year off on July 1st. As at the end of October, we still had $425,859 left. So we've spent almost $48,000 of our fund balance. So if you actually thought about collecting that money, we would actually made money on the situation, which would not have been so bad. So what we've lost is kind of a surprise to me, as in a good surprise that we didn't lose that much money over the last 2 months. So, and the last sheet here. Some considerations. You have declining fund balance. We still have 2 more months to go with free lunches through December. So November, which we're halfway through, December, so that fund balance is going to keep coming down. You're giving these kids, our children, free breakfast for the entire year, so keep that in mind. Future costs more inflation, who knows what's going on out there with the markets and stuff. So that's something to be concerned about. Supply chain issues, always something that pops up. It's funny, this week we had a problem with getting rice of all things. Uncle Ben's rice was like out everywhere we could buy it. So it's crazy what happens sometimes with us. What we can buy and what you think is normal and all of a sudden it's not available anymore. So continuation of free meals. We're now, kids come back on January 3rd, so we need to decide what we want to do with that. My recommendation, as I said to Mr. Rydell today, would be very difficult to start charging kids, our children, in January, because kids have kind of gotten used to it at this point in time. And the amount of money that we're losing is not so bad, and it seems that we have enough fund balance to hopefully carry us through to the end of June. So my recommendation to the board, and Rose's hopefully, would be to continue the program if you would like to. You don't have to do anything right now, but just let us know. And I would suggest continue for the rest of the school year and use up that fund balance, because you need to do something positive with it anyhow. So if you're going to do anything positive, keep feeding the kids. That's what I would say. So, but I also like to recommend, after this year is over, what we need to do for next year, and maybe we can have that discussion in June or July or during budget season, what you want to do next year on it, because we kind of need to know what direction we want to go in next year. I wish the federal government would say universal free meals for all, and that would solve the problem for all of us. We wouldn't have to have this discussion, but we'd like to know what's going on for next year and discuss that. So, and that's it. That's my presentation. Any questions? Yeah.
In a pre-COVID year, let's say, this year our certified number is about 31%. In a pre-COVID year, what would our number of free and reduced be, percentage-wise?
Well, that's a loaded question right now, because what happened pre-COVID, what happened during COVID, 1920, that school year, everyone started, when COVID hit, everyone kind of went on the list of free. And the federal government made us roll over all those children to the following year, which was last year basically. So we just had people drop off that have been on that list for the last 18 months or so. So beforehand, it was always around 38%. I think people are now back working, which is kind of a good thing for all of us. So people that Liz did reach out to apply did not want to apply, or a couple of them did, and they did not even come close to the number they had to hit. So.
Do you feel that the 7 or 8% that it's down is because when it got rolled out for free, people just didn't complete the paperwork?
This time around?
Correct.
Yeah, people don't want to. They don't want to complete it because they feel they don't qualify for it. So that's the issue we're having now.
Are you sure even people that do qualify, but since it's free anyway? Okay. I know that's not a fair question either, because things have changed.
Of course.
I see that the food cost is really only up about 20%, this year over last. And actually, I have to commend you, because if you saw my Instacart bill, it's up significantly more than 20%.
It's crazy.
The next is kind of a loaded question, but it really is a compliment to you, because I mean, I've had kids in this district for longer than I care to admit. But in my estimation, no child, whether they were eligible for free and reduced or not, ever went hungry. Is that correct?
100%.
So if
100%.
that's the case, and if the board were to decide not to continue the program, do you see that the community would be put at risk in any capacity at all?
No, because every child that comes in is now going to charge if they don't have the money. And Liz has dealt with the charges before, and that's no cup of tea, let me tell you that. But children come in, and there is nobody falling through the cracks. We don't deny anybody a lunch. We don't turn them away or give them a PB&J or cheese sandwich. We used to do that many, many years ago, but we don't do that anymore. Everyone gets fed. Everyone gets the same meal. Everybody puts your PIN number in, and if you charge, you charge. My cashier cannot tell who is free, reduced, or paid on the screen when it comes through. So with that said, everybody is going to get a meal. Now, at the end of the year, child could have $100 in charges. That's nothing new. Then it's a small percentage, 1 or 2 kids maybe in the district that don't pay, and then we're basically going to eat the cost. But we're eating the cost now anyhow, so there's really no difference in that. So.
And this is the last one, and I promise this is the last question.
No, it's
So in September, we did receive some extra aid. October, of course, we didn't. In the 2 months, our fund balance declined $50,000. At this rate, by the end of the 23-24 year, the balance would be effectively broke, correct?
I think you would probably have between 100 and 150 left at the end of the year, if staying the same.
50,000 every 2 months?
150,000 you should have about $100,000.
It should be about
left.
$315,000 spent at the end of this year.
23-24, the next year.
Yeah, but surplus.
That's for a completely different year.
I know.
We've spent $48,000 for 2 months, so it's $24,000 a month, so it's $240,000 a year.
But it's not 24,000 a month. September was a little unusual. October was heavy.
I averaged $25,000 a month for lunch and then $6,000 for breakfast,
Yeah, but we get
to
aid.
$315. Yeah,
We
no,
still
no,
get aid back. What I'm saying is, the net loss that they show here for the 2 months is $48,000.
The net decline in fund balance over the period is almost $50,000 over 2 months. All things considered, it's $50,000. So if you're losing $25,000 a month and you have $400,000.
Yeah, but Mike, the number is $47,921, so it's $48,000. It's $24,000 a month times 10 months is $240,000. So
Okay.
2 years is $480. So this
And there's
program,
$479.
and we have 400. We started with $473. So this program, financially, with the extra money we got, and that's barring no changes to anything, could still physically fund itself at least through all of this school year, and almost, and correct me if I'm wrong, but every year prior to this year, we also moved money from the general fund prior to COVID, we always put money into food service. So we could legitimately fund this and have no additional cost for all of this year, all of next year, which gives us, I'm not saying we've got to make a decision that far out, but we could legitimately do it for this year, towards the budget season, evaluate it, decide for next year, and then get to still see if there's any changes in where it goes without any negative impact on the district. Because the fund balance, we never had a fund balance. That fund balance is all...
We're not legally
COVID
allowed to have
money.
a fund balance.
It's all COVID money.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is, at the current rate, at the end of 23-24,
Yep.
it's gone.
Correct.
And in the
Okay.
past 2 years,
Period.
we
That's it.
normally would
No,
have had
no,
to
no,
move
that's
money
it.
from
It's
our
just-
budget
That's just a
to
statement that I'm
cover
making.
food
At this
services.
rate, that's what we're doing. Okay, and we agree that's what we're doing. That's what we're on a path
That's
for
what
right
we're
now.
talking about doing with money that can only be spent on food services.
We've been incorrectly talking about this, and I'm going to correct it. It's true that money in the fund balance in the food fund balance can only be used for food service. However, we fund the food service out of taxes in our budget every year. So if we wanted to use that money for something else, what we could do is not fund the food service from the regular budget and use the fund balance to make up for that money. That's just assuming let's say it wasn't even a free program, and we'd be able to reallocate those funds to somewhere else. That it's a misinterpretation of the way we can use the money. And when we say we can't use it any other way, that's incorrect. It's an allocation exercise where you can just reallocate what used to go to the fund, what used to go to the food service budget somewhere else and take it out of the fund balance. So let's just correct that.
But John, we don't fund the food service program until the end of the year if there's a shortage. Then we transfer money over.
Okay, so how much do we usually do every year?
This money, this $400,000, it's COVID money. There's this fund balance because of the reimbursements we got through COVID.
Right.
Traditionally, and I believe in a past presentation, I had the breakdown of how much we give to food service. Some years it's $5,000. I remember one year it was $30,000 prior to me moving into this position. So we do routinely make food service whole. This $400,000 was not from our general budget to food service.
So that I must be mistaken. I thought it part of the regular budget, at the beginning of the year, there was an allocation to the food service at the beginning of the year for whatever it was used for. Employees, whatever.
The intention is food service is self-sufficient.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
The intention is that food service runs self-sufficient. We
Right.
do supplement because at the end of the year, when there are charges that aren't paid, we cover that. We
But
don't let children go
not
hungry.
up front, as part of the regular funding.
Correct.
So, okay, but still, you're talking 30 or something. I was under the impression it was in like 100, 150 Virgin. Okay, I stand corrected now. I do have a question though, Fred, on your costs. You talk about the increase in costs of 18%, 20%. Was that any of an increase of meals served as well, or is that pure price increase?
That's pure price increase.
So
across
the rate
board,
of
yeah.
meals,
The rate of meals is basically stayed the same because it was free last year, so the kids' participation is basically flatlined this year and last year. But I will tell you what, I would just be concerned about what we're doing the rest of this school year, because I'll tell you what we did last school year when we got our bids. A lot of our paper stuff last year was a lot cheaper than it was this year. At the end of June last year, we went a little crazy because we saw the prices were basically doubling on forks, knives, spoons, plates, all that kind of good stuff. And we loaded up in June last year, probably $20,000 worth of stuff last year, and we basically hoarded it in the snack shack over the summertime, then sent it out because we were buying a box of spoons for $5, or after July 1st it was going to be 11. So we bought hundreds of cases of paper supply last year to save money going into this year because I knew the prices, we already had the prices. So whatever you're thinking of going into how much money's going to last, I would just be concerned about where we're going between now and the end of June and revisit this maybe in May or June again and see where we're at for next year, because those supplies will run out. Just like the money in our fund eventually will run out. When that happens, it happens. So, but thank you guys for all having big hearts and being a supporter of the school lunch program and doing the right thing for the kids. That's what we try to do too.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mr.
it.
Calloway.
Thank you.
If I may. Yeah. And Mr. Callow, great presentation, but also just an outstanding team that you have. The board should really, while they certainly don't want a lot of people in their kitchen, and you don't want to be in there, especially in the heart of making all the food, it is something to really see. The way that team works together, and honestly, with a smile on their face the whole time, but I spent quite a bit of time there one morning. We had Times Herald record here, so not only did they have to deal with me, they also had to deal with the person walking around with a camera, but they were just amazing. It was amazing to watch, and I just applaud you. Those that came tonight shows your dedication, but that's just a part of the team that's there, so I really just applaud you all.
And I just want to honestly say, too, I want to echo what everyone's saying. And honestly, Liz, you are amazing. Thank you. All of you are amazing. But the fact that you sat there and you did your due diligence and you got those applications, completed so that we could try to make this as successful as we can, given the parameters. Hats off to you. Hats off to all of you. You can't put a price on feeding our children and removing barriers, and this was a huge barrier, and so thank you.
Okay. Public comment on agenda items. Each speaker shall state their name and town of residence. Each speaker shall be limited to 3 minutes. Comments should be kept as brief as possible and relate to school matters. The board will consider your comment and refer such to the appropriate office. And don't all jump at once. Okay. On to the consent agenda. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approves the contracts, agreements, and reports as presented, personnel recommendations, high school equipment disposition, CSE, CPSE report, official Board of Education meeting minutes of 11/3/22. James, a second. Frank, any discussion? Being none, we'll call the vote. Faith?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Trish?
Yes.
And myself, yes. The recommended actions. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, accepts the 2021-2022 audit reports for the period ending June 30, 2022, as per the attached. Second. Frank, James second. Discussion? Call the vote. Frank?
Yes.
Faith?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Trish?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Handle with Care contract. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approve the contract with Handle with Care Behavior Management System, Inc., 184 McKinstry Road, Gardner, New York, 12525, for instructor certification training as presented. Faith and James a second. And the vote. Faith?
Whoa.
I'm sorry, discussion? Yeah, I know. Real quick.
What
sir.
is this?
Handle with Care contract. Do you have one? Do you want to?
I read it. I'm trying to understand, is it something new? What actually is the contract for?
Certainly not a new concept. Generally, I'll speak for myself. I would like to see faculty and staff trained in de-escalation strategies, as well as how to safely restrain a student that maybe, let's just take a elementary school situation, maybe you have a student that has a tendency to elope and maybe act out and could harm themselves. It protects the teacher, protects the student, etc. The model that I prefer to do, and this is just my philosophy on how to strategically do it, that is to train the trainers. So instead of consistently sending folks out to, i.e. a BOCES, this would have where approximately 10 of our administrators or teachers would actually be trained as trainers through this process. So then they can then continue to turnkey that during superintendent's conference days, as well as during any sort of summer, with the ambition or goal to get as many, always with the ambition that all would be trained, but as many teachers and staff as possible.
Great, thank you.
You bet, thank you.
Piggybacking on that, would we be able to create that as a revenue stream on superintendent conference days and invite other schools to have their people trained by our staff?
So full disclosure, I would more take the strategy of, if we had trainers here and we had some openings in it, that we would then collaborate with other schools to say that we would allow their teachers, a small number of their teachers to come. I wouldn't look at this as a revenue stream. I look at this as more of a revenue saver, where we would not be paying tuition for our folks to go out, and it just shows how you can implement something with fidelity. You're just taking out a hurdle or an obstacle, which would be the funding piece, then it becomes the time piece. But it's a great question, and it's a point well taken. I also believe that there's something to be said about the collaboration with our neighbors, where they may have something that they invite us to, et cetera.
Or perhaps even legal fees for a situation handled improperly, right?
Yeah, that's actually a very valid point, because that could be one of the questions that would be asked if something unforeseen were to take place. Was this person, did they follow the policy, right? So we can talk about policy in a few moments. Did they follow the policy? Did they follow the procedures? Were they trained? Were they certified? And this would answer that question, yes. There is an element of protecting the school district, but most importantly, it's providing the best for our students.
Any further? Okay, Faith?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Trish?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Marlboro Middle School accompanist contract. Resolved that the Board of Education... Did I skip one? My apologies, senior moment. You're right. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, accept the first read of policy number 5413, uniform grant guidance for federal award as presented. I have Frank, second, James. Any discussion? Faith?
Just one thing. As we've been discussing in our policy meetings, just that we change the district to, what do we say, Marlboro Central School District, just to follow what we're going to make the rest of them.
May I add to that, Faith? Yeah, so I think a good practice moving forward, actually, let me just set the stage a little bit. The policy committee did meet. We took on a lot of policies that evening, and we were there for multiple hours working on that. We were unable to get all the revisions typed in preparation in advance of this evening because it was just late last week, and so forth. So we will get that for the board and follow the process with first read, second read. But I do want to just publicly acknowledge the amount of time and effort that Faith, James, and Trish invested that evening. I asked probably no less than a half dozen times, okay, we can stop here or we can keep going. And they kept saying, we're going to keep going. And it was really so that we covered all of the policies of one of the topics. So I really applaud each of you. And it's one of the items that the public doesn't see as far as the time commitment of a Board of Education member. It's not just these meetings. There's a lot that goes into it, but just I felt like I was at a professional development workshop, right? We were going through every policy, dissecting it, and the board had a genuine set of questions and concerns about, well, okay, so the policy says this, how do you make this actually happen in the school setting, and what are the procedures? And it was just a great exercise. So sorry for going off on the tangent, but I just thought it was important to share. The other thing is, as we do run through any policy revisions, in addition to any sort of formatting pieces like putting our name in there, the major revision to this particular policy is letter H, and that revision was a result of what the New York State auditor that went through this policy as part of our IDEA audit recommended that we incorporate the language as it's written in letter H. So that's really the impetus of this, and then that goes into our audit report.
Yeah, along that line, maybe, and I don't know what you have talked about with it, maybe like in the first read, we could see the highlighted as, or italics or something, what the change was. Because I know when we got this, I printed the adopted and I printed the new one, and I did the whole flip through to try and find what was different.
So the format that we'll use in the ones that we did revise that will be a part of this is anything that was in the currently adopted one that's being removed will have a strike through. So nothing will be taken off. Anything that's being added will be bold and probably italicized. Maybe it's bold, but we can make it italicized so it really stands out.
Just for review purposes, it'd be easier to look at one document than to sit there and try and compare them.
Absolutely.
I was going to say, did we do
No.
Okay, Frank, you're up first.
Yes, I don't think we
Frank,
do on, it's just a first read.
Should it be under new business,
Yeah,
just
we're not-
as a point of
No,
order
we-
for it? Because first read is new business, we don't
Right,
actually have
so
to
we don't
vote on it.
until- Right.
It's just a first read of policy. I don't think we've ever voted on
And
it.
then it goes to recommended actions
On the next.
on the
We don't
second
have to
read.
accept the first read before we go to the next step? I thought we always have.
We can, I don't remember ever, not on a first read, it was just a,
Yeah, normally it was under new business for the
Okay.
first read, and then it switched over to recommended action for.
Okay.
I can't speak for certainty what's taken place here. I can say that the only way that I know is that this would be accepted as a first read.
we can vote on it, it's easy, yes.
Yeah.
Frank's yes?
Yes.
Faith?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Trish?
Yes.
And I'm yes as well. Good job, guys. There's a lot of work in that. Again, the Marlboro Middle School accompanist contract. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approve the contract with Susan Brown, 115 Wims Heights Drive, Marlboro, New York, 12542, for a piano accompanist for the middle school winter concert as per attached. Frank, second. James. Any discussion? Faith?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Trish?
Yes.
And myself, yes. On to new business. Any new business anyone would like to bring forward? No new business. Okay, old business. Anything from the past? Frank?
I'd like to make a motion that we continue the free lunch, free breakfast through the remainder of the school year based on the information we received tonight.
Second, James? Discussion?
Well, why is this so loud?
You have a different mic.
Oh, is that why? All right. So my contention from the beginning was that I didn't know what problem we were trying to solve. The people keep saying kids shouldn't go hungry, but we heard straight from the food director, which we should have talked to the first time before we voted on this, in my opinion, but that nobody goes hungry. So what's the problem we're trying to solve and spending money? I understand we got COVID money, it's free money, quote unquote, even though it came from my other state tax pocket instead of my school tax pocket, but that's another conversation. But still, we can, even if it costs us $30,000, $50,000 a year out of our general fund, we could just let that go down slowly every year and take that money, whatever it is, and put it somewhere else. Or find another way to spend that money within food services. I don't know, equipment, better material, another employee for a year or two. I don't know, but we can't keep using the excuse it's free money, we have to spend it. My point is, what's the problem we're trying to solve? How many kids are going hungry in this district? I heard nobody. And we wind up paying that to the exact penny at the end of the year, which is tracked through the charging system. So nobody's going hungry. We are taking money out of our budget to supplement that, which everybody, I would guarantee a 7-0 vote for that if we had to vote. We don't, but but if we had to, I guarantee you nobody would say, yeah, we need that 30,000 kids should have to deal on their own. So again, what problem are we solving other than spending down this money?
So
that's my big contention here.
I know we were told that no kid goes hungry, and I do believe that any child who walks up to that line is never turned away, and it's not like it was when we were younger where you are given a cold sand. You get a normal meal. The problem is there are plenty of families who send their kid in to school with a lunch that may not be adequate, and that kid is told, you're not allowed to go and get lunch. And we don't hear from those kids, and our monitors are spectacular at lunch, and they can pay attention and they pick up on a lot of things, but you can't sit here and say that there are not kids with food insecurities in Marlboro who are not benefiting from this program being continued. And that is why I will fully support this program continued this year, next year. If it came to it, coming from our budget, I would continue to implement this program, because as a student who had food insecurities, I know I was sent with a lunch, and there's many days I would have rather gotten a school lunch, but I knew, I was told by my family, we can't afford it. So just because we're being told one thing, that's not the reality everyone lives with. And until you can wake up with that shoe on your foot, it's hard to be up here saying, no kid goes hungry. And when the bills do come in, there are plenty of families who could have spent that $100 or $200 elsewhere, but feel the obligation to pay that money back. There's a few families who don't feel that obligation, and we foot that bill. But there's a lot of families who get the bill from food services and they cut their check and they send it back, and mom and dad may not eat that night or for a week. Like, that does happen in this world we're living in, and you see it everywhere. It's the big push from NISBA. If you haven't seen the petition or the formed letter to write and fill out, contact one of the board members, because we all were given it, to contact our local representatives to push New York to become a state that will fully fund school lunch programs. I think if we can get enough people on that board, we can make sure our students get to eat this year, but we need to be a bigger voice in the communities to make it a New York State, if not a federally funded program moving forward. It was the biggest disservice our government did, letting that end in June. So that's where I believe the problem is, as someone who grew up having lunch but not being able to afford lunch.
Thank you, James. Roseanne, you wanted to add?
I just wanted to share with the board that food service technically is not supposed to be carrying such a significant fund balance. And last year, they asked us, what are you doing to spend this money? If we don't expend it, I'm afraid at the next audit, we may get a bigger hand slap. Just so the board is aware, it's not supposed to be a for-profit entity. So even though the reason why we have the fund balance is because they gave us the money, they still make sure that we're going to expend the money. So I don't know if it's going to be next year or the year after when they call us to the carpet on why we still have.
Rose, to the extent that money's been transferred into that balance over the years, can that money be returned or no?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, but there's no...
So you're saying the money that the district put into food service?
Right, to supplement that. Okay, that can't be returned. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I think, we all, I don't even know how to say this without getting myself in trouble, but the bottom line is this. As the Board of Education, it is our task to try to remove barriers from learning. Can we all agree? Okay, we have a very unique problem here. We're developing a strategic plan to try to spend down the several $100,000 that we have that can only be used for food services. Am I correct? Okay. So with that said, I think it's fair to say that we think about how we can be strategic to get us through the rest of 2022, 2023, bring this conversation back, and think about next school year. I don't want someone to come in here and audit the books and say, what are you guys doing with all this money? What is your plan? And us sitting there at the 11th hour scratching our heads. I think we have a fabulous plan in place right now. The numbers support it. I guess I just don't understand what the argument is. I get respectfully, John, what you're saying, like, what is the problem we're trying to solve? And I think we probably should have asked specific questions when this topic was first raised, like, what is our percentage? What percentage of students do we have that we can truly prove, are going hungry? I think, I don't think we're ever going to know the answer to that, because I think that there's a lot of shame attached to that, and I don't think that a lot of people are going to be really transparent and come forward and say, we can't afford this, or you're going to have little kids or whatever, they maybe not come forward and say, I didn't eat today. We count on our aides, our food service staff, our fabulous teachers, and faculty to be our eyes and ears in these buildings and say when we see that certain people are struggling and bring it forward. Again, this is a unique problem. We have a solution for now. I just don't want to discount what we're doing, because I think we've made a huge impact and have helped a lot of children and families during this very, very difficult time. People want to say inflation, it's a recession. And if you got to put $100 in your tank just to get to work so that you could put food on the table, it is nice if we have this problem where we can help families out with breakfast and lunch so that they could afford to put dinner on their table. So, I almost feel like it's more of a humanitarian responsibility at this juncture. If we have the funds, we have to spend the funds smart. We have to be smart about it, but we want to have a strategic plan so that if we are audited, we can speak to the plan and say we do have, ideas and plans for this allocation. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Trish. If I could add to that, I think a responsible plan would include, and I'm sure the auditors would agree with this, long and short-term planning. What are our needs in the short term? But also, we're about to get as many as 120 to 180 new students in right next door to the middle school. Perhaps Mr. Callow and his team could take a look at their equipment and say, all right, with another 100, 200 people, what are my equipment requirements? What are my space, in your spare time, Fred, it's okay. But what are my upcoming costs? Maybe that becomes part of the spend down. If he needs another 150,000 in equipment, if he needs to move a wall to enlarge a kitchen, if he needs refrigeration so he could make, bigger project, I don't know.
That was part of the plan last year, and Fred had gone through a lot of the items in his kitchens, and we did purchase some things, but I'm certainly, throughout this year, we can certainly look at that again
But
to make sure
just
that
to present
his
a longer term-
facilities are up
Right.
to date. Just keeping in mind that this money would have to be expended quickly. It's
But
not
if
something
the
we can-
plan is in place, the money doesn't necessarily have to go out. If the money is allocated towards a kitchen improvement plan in the 3 buildings, so it gets him the equipment he needs, it gets him the refrigeration, it gets him all the things that he needs to not only accommodate what we have, but the anticipated growth. In addition to that, X number of years down the road, you have the Middle Hope project, and who knows how many kids that's going to bring. So there's a lot more at stake than just funding the immediate meals. I understand what James is saying, and frankly, I'm sympathetic towards what he's saying. But I think that arbitrarily spending the number down without looking at short, medium, and longer range goals where that money could be allocated would be a mistake.
So just a couple of things listening to you guys. First of all, to address what James was saying, I think there's got to be other ways to go identify those people. We have social workers, we have lots of resources in the schools that could go out and proactively try to identify where those are. Yes, there might be still a few out there that you don't reach, but is the answer to reaching that small percentage, let's give 100% of the population free food that doesn't need it, or a high percentage of it doesn't need it? I don't know if that's the answer, but the other part to Trish's point is, and to yours, Roseanne, is if we really are limited time to spend this, I could be talked into finishing this year, because another thing Fred said that I heard very loudly, how are you going to turn this off in the middle of the year? I said that at the beginning, don't turn it on until we do all the analysis, but somehow we were in a big hurry because the school was starting. But I was afraid of that because of how are you going to turn that off in the middle of the year? You can't, basically. If you do, it's another wreaking havoc again in another way. So I could probably go along with for the end of the year. But I do think, to Mike's point, that's a lot of money. It could buy a lot of things. It could buy additional staff. It could buy training. It could buy, unless you're telling me you can only spend it on one thing. I know, because what I was thinking when Mike was talking was that some of that's capital. Is that not going to, can that come out of that money? No. So that's another limitation. So I could agree with going for the end of the year, but the analysis has to continue. Because we'll have 200-something thousand at the end, if I heard the numbers right? Then we're in the same conversation. But it just seems to be like we can do it smarter and address the population that really needs it. When you throw money around to catch those people and you're spending it where you don't need it, you're wasting money. You should be somehow, I don't know, I know it's not easy. We're talking about humans now. But we should target that money so you can spend more of it on the area that needs it rather than just spend it in a catch-all fashion, which is like the government did for the last 2 years, and everybody's on this kick like we should do that forever, and we don't have it, and we're not going to have it in a couple of years down the road if we even that far. So we got to figure out the smart way to do it. I could go along with the end of the year and then see where we are, but the analysis has to keep going. We can't wait till June and say, what are we doing next year, right? And we're in the same conversation we're having now.
The motion that's on the table is for just this school year.
But I'm saying,
and I think we've
into
debated it. I'd ask to call the vote. That you call the vote.
Any further discussion? Okay. Trish?
Not me or Trish?
Sorry. Faith. I do that every time.
And I was looking at it.
You're going to get big name tags.
I'm sorry. Faith?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Trish?
Yes.
And myself? Yes. So we're approved to the end of the year.
Yeah, but let's not forget the analysis we got to do between now and then. We have to keep that conversation going, that's all.
When would you like your next update?
We definitely have to do it before.
Yes.
Mr. Rydell, can you find an appropriate time to get it into our budget discussions?
Yes, I can, but I do think that I feel compelled to just add a few comments. I've heard the word strategic, human, smart, all of that. This is a very complicated problem, and I don't care how you want to look at it, whether it's if there's such thing as a good problem or a bad problem, right? It's very, very complicated, and I just want to exercise caution because it's generally how I do not like to enter into the decision-making process with emotion or without having facts, but also without having stakeholder involvement. I think there are many opportunities that are presented when you look at having things such as a fund balance. The audit is not one of those things that should be entered into our discussion. Doing the best things for kids, because an auditor coming in and saying, what's your plan? They'll get a plan, and they'll get a good plan because we'll have that. They give us a letter saying that we have too much in fund balance, but we fundamentally know we have a good plan for kids, then we take the letter. That's where it ends, and I don't mean to be flippant or disregarding the process. I respect the process, but I also know it's not as though we're doing something nefarious or without the right intentions. All that being said, I want to stress, I believe that we take the time, we get stakeholders together, we understand, A, what problems we are looking at, what hurdles exist, and what can we do. Because the creativity and imagination of a group of people in a room will astound you every single time because it astounds me every single time. You can talk about things of decreasing the margin between what a meal will cost the school district, what is charged, and what the quality of that meal is. If you have the good fortune of having more money, you're not looking for that to solve the delta of your food service to give you that zero at the end of the year. You're able to offer a higher quality meal to each and every student, paid or unpaid. That's one example of how things can be improved. And also the long-term planning, such as how do we make it so it's not impacting taxes if we need to do a capital project or other such improvements. So the list is endless. I just think we hit pause, not on what was just decided, but on moving forward and take the time to research and investigate. Sorry I went long.
Any other old business?
I apologize. You asked when you want to come back. I would like a decision from the board. Are you okay with us putting together a stakeholder group in addition to doing the research so that we can have food service representatives there, we can have faculty, staff, and really just the more minds around the table. And with that, I can then get back to you probably as soon as early next week with when we could have reports done and when we can set up the meeting.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anyone opposed? No. Okay. Any other old business? And other items? No? Okay. Being none, last recognition of district residents. Recognition of district residents. Each speaker shall state their name, town of residence. Each speaker shall be limited to 3 minutes. Comments should be kept as brief as possible and relate to school matters. The board will consider your comment and refer such to the appropriate office. Okay, being none. There's no exec tonight, so may I have a resolve that the Board of Education adjourn the business meeting? Frank and Trish. And I didn't say Faith. Meeting adjourned at 8:50, 8:49 and change. Whatever. Not happy with that. I'm just not happy with that.